everybody. A warm welcome to Wisdom from North, the place for empowerment and transformation. My name is Janneke, and today it's truly a joy for me to be here with John Selby. John is both a fiction and a non-fiction author, having published over 30 books within self-help and meditation. He has also written 11 feature screenplays and half a dozen novels, and also published 40 folk jazz songs. Now, throughout the years, he has been working as a spiritual counselor and a cognitive therapist. And today we will be speaking about one of his books called Let Love Find You, 7 Steps to Open Your Heart to Love. And in Norwegian is called La din livspartner finne deg. And we're going to see if we can become a bit wiser on how we can attract or invite true love into our hearts. Hello, John. How are you doing today?
Well, hello. Thank you.
So,
I'm in a. It's morning over here in California, so I'm just waking up, and we'll get my tongue to wag step by step.
and it's evening here, so that's how this plays out. But it's really wonderful for me to be here with you because this book feels kind of magical to me. It has been on my shelf for a long time, and I've lived here for 11 years, and now I'm moving, so it fell off my shelf. And I feel like I'm, in the process of, being open to attracting a soulmate. So it just seemed like coming at the right time. And I remember when I started Wisdom from North, I thought about you and I wanted to reach out, but I couldn't find you online. I don't know why, but all of a sudden I found you immediately and here you are. So I kind of feel that the timing is aligned here. So you have many meditations here, and you're also going to give a meditation for my members on my membership. But what I want to start with is by asking, you're saying on page 19 that you are already together, meaning that you and your loved one are already together. And that is such a beautiful concept. Let's start there. How is that possible?
You are asking one of the great questions of the universe, my dear. In fact, this I had not looked at this book literally for 15 years. So you got me to get it off the shelf too.
Interesting.
I mostly made my living writing books, and when I write a book, once I understand something, so I don't have to talk about it anymore. I write it, and there that is. Then I can go on to what's interesting me as the next book. So I was, to be quite honest, just a couple of days ago, I got the book on Kindle because my eyesight's not good for small print. I must say that's probably one of the best books I wrote, certainly. And it's like almost everything that I have had to say is in that book. It's not just a book about finding true love. It's really the whole kit and caboodle. It's pretty much all I've found that really is important as a meditative personal development program. And almost like the reward of that process is finally being able to open up and attract a long-term mate or whatever you're looking for. So the question, I go all the way from physics to mysticism. The whole thing is part of how we must look at life to understand the full scope of it. And I'm 72 now, and my basic message to the world is the mystery just continues to deepen. That mostly what we're doing is participating within an infinite realm of consciousness that our little human brain here really cannot grasp and comprehend. So the answer to your question is, in terms of what my physicist friends explained to me, we're really living in a perfect universe. Our whole sense of past and present and future breaks down at a certain point in physics, And it also breaks down at a certain point in how we come together as kindred hearts to live together, and how we find each other. I love the title of Let Love Find You, as opposed to going out and trying to find love. That's probably the biggest turnaround in the book.
I was going to ask you about that.
you can't make it happen. In fact, the older I get, the more I realize that surrendering and participating is what makes it happen, not manipulating and trying to make things happen. This book emerged out of my own experience in Europe at the age of 37. I had been through 2 marriages and 6 really significant love relationships at that time. And I hadn't found what I was looking for. And I had finally actually gone to Europe to just get away from everything, to stop all of the games that I was playing and the relationships that I had. Because, and this is probably key to the whole issue, it is true that until we learn to really fully open our hearts to our own selves, forget true love. It just isn't going to happen. Because if we don't first love ourselves, there's nobody home to love. And of course, this is the great challenge of the meditative path, and certainly of therapy and personal growth and all of the rest. How do we, in fact, come or learn to fully, unconditionally love ourselves first? True love is all about seeking unconditional love. The entire meditative path is all about the same thing, only it's something that we give ourselves. So, by the way, I pause like that because the other primary thing that's important is, not to let the tongue wag unless you're engaged down here also. And as I just did that, what happened was I suddenly became aware that I am here right now and you are here in the present moment. But in the future, people are going to watch this interview and they're going to be touched as if we're communicating in the present moment together. And technology is really pointing this out, that I can touch you out there if I'm in my heart, that love is not functioning within the space-time continuum. This is the key, really. That we have our biological physical body that functions in the space-time continuum, past, present, future. There's an entirely other equal or perhaps infinite dimension, and that exists outside the space-time continuum. I live here next to the University of California, and a friend of mine who was a professor who studied with Albert Einstein at Princeton, I met him back there a long time ago, he's just regularly pointing this fact out to me, that it's extremely difficult to communicate, of course, but that consciousness is not functioning within the space-time continuum. This is why meditation, where you quiet your mind entirely and just be conscious, moves you into that transcendent state. And when we apply this to finding each other, to letting love find us, what we're doing is we're shifting entirely out of the known, out of the world in which human beings can manipulate their environment to get what they want. The magic of being possessed with this desire to find true love is that it really pushes us to look in this entirely other direction. And one of my main books was Quiet Your Mind. And after like 30 years, it still sells because this is this idea that if you learn to quiet your mind, come fully into your body in the present moment, into the mindful meditative state, something happens. And to get back to your original question, which is a challenge, if two people are going to meet at a certain point in time in the future, by the logic of science, in the present moment, we're already on a congruent point where we're going to meet at in the future. So if you understand that you are already inevitably, right now, you are in line to have that encounter in the future, then you can actually relax and focus on what's most important is that, are you ready? Are you ready? And if you're not ready, what responsibility are you going to take to prepare yourself? And
Uh, I get many questions. It's so interesting what you're saying, but it's so many levels to all these things. So what I wanted to ask you first that you mentioned was that you have to love yourself first. But what I am wondering about is how much do you need to love yourself? Because I don't think it's possible to love yourself unconditionally. That's my perspective now. That can change, but I feel like we're human beings and there will always be something we're not completely satisfied with, or we're that it's so common not feeling good enough, but yet people find love. Like, people are in relationships, but I don't see that they love themselves unconditionally. So I was wondering, when you talk about true love, is that something else? Is that something very rare that you're talking about for a few people that have come to a place in themselves where they really love themselves to a high degree?
I think we have to be real careful in allowing the intellectual, conceptual, judgmental function of the mind, the ego, which is doing the judging and not loving yourself unconditionally. The real challenge is simply to quiet that function of the mind, because it's going to forever do its job, which is to judge, to discriminate, to try to make things better and better and better. And that is a function of our mind. I'm just here to say that in that direction, no, you're not going to find true love. It is quite a challenge. The challenge that our hearts give us is to, over the last 10 years, I've really changed my understanding of all of this too. And where I've ended up is that we simply must just stop all of this hunting and searching and all that function of the mind that is trying to make things better and better. I've thrown it out. It's really the greatest obstacle, that we are born and conditioned to think that we are not good enough, ever. Lord have mercy. And it brings you to the cause of this, of course, mostly religious programming. I was once a Presbyterian minister until they threw me out for being Buddhist. But I moved in the Buddhist, I'm not Buddhist either, but I moved in that direction because, quite honestly, when I looked to the, in my theological training and so on, the deeper I looked into the Christian tradition, the more I realized, this is not resonating with my experience. I'm not born a sinner. I'm perfectly fine. I'm God's creation just the way that I am. So instead of trying to make myself better, if I simply give it all up and honor and love myself just as I am. Wow, what a relief. And think now of the person out there that I want to meet to satisfy me and to come close to me and share my heart's feelings. If in my heart I don't love myself unconditionally, what am I giving them to love? And this is really serious stuff. And when we start to say, well, am I attractive? Um, what is the deeper resonance that my whole body is broadcasting in the present moment? Will that attract the kind of person that I need and want? Really have to ask that question. I am going around these days telling people, just stop trying to make yourself better. You're not going. It doesn't happen. Because who is it that's trying to make you better? That judgmental function of the mind that's never going to let you off the hook. What I like to do with groups is, before I really start talking and moving people into the thinking part of their brain, first of all, bring us down into our whole body presence so that we can actually listen and hear, not in the way we were taught in schools to learn and to acquire information, but actually to shift into experience. The entire process of falling in love is not a thought. It's a feeling. It's an experience. And we are so much up in here in our heads, which is a reflective function. Our senses basically bring in experience, and then we think about it and digest it. And that's a worthwhile function, going back and forth. But most people are, most of the time, in thinking mode rather than in feeling mode. So I over the years have been developing I'm a great believer in The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, which was a book when I was in my 20s. This does not have to be hard. It should be joyful and fun and really easy. And the harder we make it, for me, the farther we are from our goal. So the first thing I always point out is that the nose knows that the air flowing in and out of the nose is right in this part of the brain. I mean, it brings us, boom, right into here. So if you first of all feel the air flowing in and out of your nose, and then while you stay aware of that sensation, because it's a sensation, brings us into this part of the head, you then expand your awareness to include the movements in your chest and belly as the air flows in and out. This in itself is magical because the thinking mind is always focused on a point. Thought, word, word, word. It's a linear, focused on a point functioning of the mind. And the meditative experience is to take that focused on a point and expand it to where you see the whole at once. That's really the core of meditation. When you do this, the mind becomes quiet. It's really that simple in terms of the dynamics psychologically. And this meditation, where you first focus on the air flowing in and out of the nose, then don't shift your focus down to your chest and your breathing. Expand your awareness to include both the sensations in the nose and the movements in your chest as you breathe. And just that quiets the flow of thoughts through the mind.
So, John, would you like to share your own story? You started a bit about telling that you went to Europe and you had two former relationships. So, how did you find your true love?
Well, I would go all the way back to the beginning and say when I was 6 weeks old, my mother abandoned me for 4 months. And I had a real issue with abandonment. I didn't trust love. I didn't trust women. And I was working all of that out. And I finally, for the first time in my life, I first of all went to Guatemala for a year, lived alone, then came back into a beautiful relationship that blew up when it was due to. And then I went to Europe and really for the first time lived and worked in West Berlin for several years with good friends and relationships. But I really for the first time was just really content inside my own skin to be alone. And a lot of the meditation programs I came up with emerged during that year. And it was very interesting that right in the middle of finally feeling not needy anymore, I think I put it in the book, I was doing a particular meditation that was a spiritual meditation, not aimed at other people. But right in the middle of doing just being in my heart and seeing what the feelings were in my heart, which is the next step I was going to do in that meditation, was once you're here in your body, really simply see what are the feelings in your heart right now, without judging, without trying to change them. There's a lot of magic in all of this because only by letting go and not trying to make anything happen do things start to happen. That's an amazing
paradox. Yeah.
The paradox of love is just full of it. And I had a teacher once, a fellow named Alan Watts, who gave me a model that works beautifully. He said, the only way to resolve paradox, because the world is full of paradox at deeper levels, is to, in your thinking mind, have the world be a 200% universe. You can be 100% material person on this planet and 100% and eternally one with God. But it's a 200% situation.
I love that. I just underline that. I love what you said there, or Alan Watts said. Yeah. Makes sense, because I've never understood it. How is it possible with all these paradoxes, all these spiritual paradoxes? I should take action, but at the same time, I should let go of the outcome, but I should meditate on it every day and have an intention. It just, my mind don't understand it, but there's something in me that does, and that's a paradox too.
That's the wonderful paradox, is that we have the intellectual function of the human mind is remarkable. We are able to plan ahead and manipulate and do all of this stuff and so on, and make our lives better and all of this. And at the same time, only when we let go of all that manipulation do we begin to stop manipulating and participate. We can't do both of those at the same time. So ultimately, we're continually confronted with the decision of where are we going to focus our attention? Which mode of consciousness are we going to be in as we move through the present moment? I must be quite honest. I'm getting rather mystical in my old age here, but I've come to the point where surrendering and participating in the mystery of life is the trick, rather than trying to manipulate and get what I want and so forth as an ego. I love my ego, but I very often ask it to please just go sit in the corner and be quiet. Let me get on with life. Because there is a flow. There is a natural magical flow. And that's how when I went to Europe, I suddenly felt one night in my heart the presence of another person. So I was sitting there in West Berlin meditating, and I simply became aware of someone else with me in the room, a presence. The research, like the pair research at Princeton, did show that the human mind broadcasts even thoughts and feelings that people at a distance can receive. This is now, they've proven this. It's an amazing breakthrough in science that we now know that we are broadcasting. And people of like mind are able to receive. And the magic of coming together is, like I say in the book, when you get really clear of your intent and what you're seeking in your heart, you can feel the yearning, that yearning is a power. And when we have the yearning for love and we haven't yet learned to love ourselves, we're in a pretty difficult situation because we're running around trying to find somebody else to give us that love that we can't give ourselves. And it's impossible. It's absolutely impossible for that to happen. So I had reached a point where I was not needy anymore. And I was willing to just take what the universe brought me and feel that that suffices, that's enough. And there seemed to be someone somewhere who was resonating with that feeling. Now, I'm not someone who thinks there's one true love in the world that you have to find. I think there's thousands and thousands of people we can be quite happy and content with if we first found love in our own hearts for ourselves. It's not really very demanding of one's mate. If you already love yourself and they love themselves, the difficulty of a relationship basically dissolves. I've never made any effort to hold my relationship together with Brigitte, who I've been with now 35 years. We don't do any of these games that we have to work and struggle to make our relationship work. Because after I had that feeling in my heart, I had like 3 weeks when my life was really transcendent, in that I never lost that feeling of that person's presence. And I went out into the world expecting this person to appear at any time. I flew down to Switzerland, to Basel and Solothurn, and did a weekend workshop. And in this really interesting state, and I met several women. It was like, it was like I was very receptive, just because I had this feeling in my heart. And then Monday morning, I was supposed to fly back to Berlin and see clients all week. And I was in such a nice house, and I hadn't had a vacation in Europe since I got there, that I took time, canceled everything, and just had a little mini vacation. And Wednesday night, Birgitte came to check on the cat, walked into the room, not knowing I was there. Boom, there we were, and it was like, bang. There was never any question at all. But here's the joke. And I say this because I had a definite sort of image of who I was looking for, okay? Visually, physically, all these things. She was the opposite. She was just this punky little 24-year-old Bavarian girl. First thing she said to me, to be quite honest, she says, I don't speak English and I don't like psychologists. She flipped it out. I said, okay. So the notion of looking, it's really important to throw away all of these concepts we have of what will make us happy and who we're looking for.
Yes, and you're saying that a lot in the book, and you're saying in a way it should be easy and all that, but I find that it's not easy because my mind does have expectations, and even though I try to let go of them, it's like, but I want a guy like that, I feel like it's. I'm not sure what is intention or what is my mind having expectations. But what I've done is try to cultivate this feeling that I want to feel a certain way with a person, that it doesn't necessarily need to look like that or that, because I know that that's my brain that are comparing men I've had before that I find attractive. So it's my mind having figured out the picture. But so I try to anchor myself more in the emotion on how I want to feel. And I tried to catch you when you're saying that, you should have the longing, but you should love yourself. Otherwise, you're in a difficult position. And you should have the let go of the outcome. But still, that longing is doing something. It has this attractive energy, or these are my words trying to understand what you said. And that is very complex, what you're talking about. It's like, okay, am I there or there? But for me, like listening to this and feeling what you were reading in this book, and this is very personal for me, so this is like a special interview for me to do. But I feel like I'm in that place because I want to meet someone. At the same time, I feel pretty good about how things are. I long for someone, but I don't feel I need someone. So I feel okay, but the longing can sometimes be, I long for it, but it's not a negative feeling in a way. So maybe that's what you're talking about. I don't know. This was a long ramble, but this is complex, and I wanted also to ask you about. What about patterns like we have? Like, I always meet a married woman, or the ones I meet are never available, or I always end up being the mother in the relationships, or patterns like that. That can take hope away. Like, I met just another one just like my ex, Do you have any thoughts on patterns in our relationships?
Certainly. Well, as you say, this is very complex, and it can be confusing if we're trying to just understand it intellectually, because I'm continually saying two opposite things at the same time, and that is how it works. So I have to stick with with the reality. But in my book and my program, I include both all the preparatory parts of it, that you really must heal your broken heart before you go out looking for true love, or you're just going to have another codependent relationship. That has to happen. We must do that work, and the preparation is very important. But then comes actually kind of the fun part. You also must go hunting, which all of my meditative friends thought, John, that's a terrible idea to tell people you gotta. But I grew up on a cattle ranch. I'm very much a hunter, And when I was also brought up. My grandfather was, basically took the land over from the Chumash Indians for his ranch here in California, and he was deeply into the Indian approach to hunting, which is very different from, when you don't have a gun, it's really different. You have to get in tune with what you're hunting and have a relationship and feel that you need to kill that deer in order to feed your family, and have all of these feelings. And then the magic happens, you find what you're searching for. And so I definitely teach in my book that you reach a point where it's time to go out hunting. And when you hunt, if you just go to the same place every day at the same time, you're not going to find anything. So like you said, breaking patterns is very important. And that just means not going about your daily routine unconsciously, but just being aware every moment of the decisions you're making and the options that you have, and venture down a new street or do new things which you're going to enable the universe to bring that to you which you're seeking. If you're just locked in your patterns over and over and over, you don't have opportunity. So it certainly is important to, and that goes both for where you move around in your daily life, and also what thoughts you're allowing to drive you. What are you filling your mind with? If you are out looking, as I had been, for your dream woman or your dream man, um, you're missing all of the opportunities that could have worked for you otherwise. So letting go of, well, it drops down to a very deep spiritual question. Um, we either are letting our ego run the show, or we're surrendering to a higher flow in the universe. People who think that they are not good enough also do not feel they're living in a perfect universe. And one of the things I realized early on is, who wants to live in an imperfect? If this universe isn't perfect, we're in trouble. That the sense that in the present moment, if we can just accept the moment, as a beginning, that right now, is everything okay or not? And that's a judgment of our mind. And we can deal with that judgment. We can look and say, wow, look at what I'm doing. Over everything I'm doing in life, I'm laying this basic judgment that's negative. And that is what I'm broadcasting. That's my basic negative attitude and expectation. And therefore we get just what we're expecting. And that feeds our loop, and we, after years and years, become to accept, well, that's just how the world is. Really, it's just an attitude someone programmed us with in childhood.
Yeah, I think it's really important what you're saying, because it has to do with hope and belief that this is possible. I have a friend of mine. She really wanted to find love, but she felt like, it's not going to happen because she had this condition, and she felt like a man won't, it will be too complicated with me. But then she took this course, and I said, what happened in that course? Because she met her husband after that. And I was like, what changed in that course? And she said, well, it's because I started believing. All of a sudden, I felt that this might be possible. And that was like the biggest shift for her. So I agree what you're saying, because when you are in hope and you believe, then you broadcast that, right? That will be your subconsciousness, actually. When you truly believe, it will, law of attraction, like the universe is mirroring what you're feeling. So I guess that's why, meditations are very important. You're saying do them every day, because it doesn't help to do them one day and then, because we fall back to old belief systems. So we have to reprogram our minds, basically.
We need to learn to focus in productive directions. For instance, I don't tell people to really meditate every day. I say do it all the time.
Okay, right.
Be aware of the air flowing in and out of your nose all of the time. That's the challenge. And of course, it's a challenge. But if you take on the challenge, all of a sudden you just feel wonderful, because you're here. When we are lost in thought, we are not in our hearts. We really need to see that. If you're wanting to find true love, which is a heart experience, and you're lost in your thoughts all day, you're not even on the ballpark to play the game. So there are these underlying decisions that we're making every moment. For instance, one of the few books I have left to write, I mostly said what I have to say this lifetime, but I'm working on a chakra book. And in fact, it's called The Second Chakra, which is the sex chakra. And when we're lost in our heads, we're simply not down in the lower chakras at all. And the decision to balance our awareness of all of the 7 chakras together and to have an integrated energy system isn't just an idea. This is what all the great athletes know from experience, for instance, as well as the spiritual masters, that we have 7 energy centers in our body, each of which functions independently and functions in harmony with the others. And one way or another, to regularly bring our awareness down through all of the chakras and to simply be here now, not as an idea, but as an experience. The second chakra, sex chakra, comes up from the root chakra and then rises up through the power chakra and the breathing into the heart. And up to that point, there's no thoughts at all. There's no thought in those lower four chakras, really. Then we move up into the fifth, which is where all the talk and the vocalization and the thinking and so on begins, and hopefully comes up into the higher intuitive functions of the mind up here, and then into the highest spiritual chakra. But if you notice, if we're just up in here, we're not broadcasting really any attraction at all to the world around us. For a relationship to work, we need to be able to broadcast our feelings of love, but we also have to be able to open our hearts and receive that. And once again, it's a 200% reality, right? This is this giant truth. Most people, most of the time, are in broadcast mode. They're not quietly in receive mode. That's considered too feminine and soft and so on and so forth. But this ability is, we need to go out and hunt for our mate. If you want it, go get it. At the same time, imagine the person that you are hunting, that they have to be able to receive you in order for something to happen. But you also have to be in receive mode and let them find you. And it's those two things happening together that really energetically, when you have, your two bodies, your two energetic systems, which are going to come together in the beauty of conjugal love, both of them need to be balanced and aligned and come together as, the seven chakras really come together. It's not just the heart chakra coming together, or the sex chakra, or the intellectual chakra. So yeah, it's a deep mystery, isn't it? Birgitta this morning said, don't forget to mention that a lot of people are very happy alone. And to talk a bit about being alone without being lonely. And once again, the point is, if you really feel good in your own heart, and you have love in general for everyone, say Francis of Assisi, that is equally fulfilling. Yeah, I won't say what's meant to happen, but I know quite a few people who are really happy outside of a sexual relationship, and that they arrived there through this process of finally letting go and loving themselves just as they are, as a complete unit full of the love of the universe, without having to do the sexual mate pairing sort of genetically programmed game. So my answer to you is, well, let me put it this way. In my relationship with Birgitta, I spend 3/4 of my time entirely alone out of that relationship. I'm a writer, that's what I do. And there is a natural pulsation. I in terms of, I call it successful distancing. That relationships usually fall apart because people come together with that beautiful, strong passion, and there they are, and finally they can't sustain it and they blow apart. But real relationships that endure are going like this all of the time. They're pulsing back and forth in terms of closeness and really being totally alone, maybe half of the time. So the concept that a successful love relationship is really tight all the time, is entirely false. You can't sustain that. I really don't know anybody who does. Uh, so it's the paradox again. You must be 100% together in that love, not 50%, but 100%. And then pulse away and be 100% really loving being alone with yourself.
I've come to that. I think that if you have a longing, because yes, one thing is to be happy alone and you're choosing that, and I see many does that. But I think if you do have a longing and if you really want to meet someone, I think there's someone there for you. Because I think that you
Yeah,
wouldn't have the longing if you there wasn't someone there for you. That doesn't mean you are guaranteed to meet that person, but I feel that energetically there is a possibility for you to meet someone. But then anything can happen because we do have free will. That's what I've arrived at, that we can always choose not to meet the person. Yeah, so it is mysterious. I mean, I've been wondering about this my whole life, like, because I look around and almost all my friends are married, and I'm like, how did, I'm single. Why am I single? Why are they married? What did I do that they didn't do? How do people meet each other? People meet each other all kinds of places, like in the grocery shop, and it's just so mysterious and magical. So, and I guess we can't figure it out, but still, I just had really a resonance with your book because I didn't want to go on all these apps and just spend time. Like, I feel like I don't have time to do that. I want to focus, but what can I do? So by me focusing inwards and on the meditation, I feel like I'm doing something and it makes me feel really good. And then I don't have to spend a lot of time online looking for a mate. And I just feel so good about it. So I just really want to thank you for this wonderful book. Amazing work. And I hope that it's still for sale because I can really recommend it for everyone.
yeah.
Not
I just
only,
found out that
yeah.
I didn't know, but it's in Kindle too. So you can
Oh.
read it on your device. I would like to mention that the last 5 years, what I did was develop sort of my mega app. That I put all of my basic, deepest meditations onto an app, and it's free. And it has a daily program and just loads of other stuff too. Kind of everything. I mean, that book there is actually a wonderful book because I covered everything I've found in 50 years is really in that book that seems very important. And focus phrases are extremely important. On my my app is called Mindfully Here, and if you go to johnselby.com, all of that is there. Um, because every day I introduce a new focus phrase. There's 24 core focus phrases that have emerged from all of my work, and they're taught on the app in a really enjoyable video way. But focus phrases, for instance, just to hold in your mind all day: I honor and love myself just as I am. Say it to yourself. See how it makes your heart feel. And in fact, when you say that to yourself, if you're in your head, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, but if you're down in your heart when you say that, it's like, you know, there's something to hold on to. There's a place to focus. Because when you honor and love yourself just as you are, someone who honors and loves themselves just as they are, if all of your chakras are basically resonating similar, there you go.
I
It's
believe that
not.
too.
It's ultimately not complex at all.
Right.
Yeah, just the thinking mind makes it so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I want to end with that. And we're going to do a meditation also for my members on Wisdom from North membership. But thank you so much, John. And I
Pleasure.
hope this was inspiring for you guys out there. If you are looking for a partner, you know that I truly recommend this book and it's still available. And you can also get some free meditations on the app that John has. Or you can just read the book to attract, a business partner or something else. Or if you want to open up to more love in yourself. So thank you so much, John, for this and all the best with your work.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching, guys. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't before. Much light from the US and Norway. Bye bye.